Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a centralized platform for athletes to network and connect with fellow athletes and their alumni. And this show is all about helping athletes as they transition out of sport. It's such a major issue today between financial literacy and mental health and career services. And so we interview former collegiate and professional athletes and talk about their journey and transition out of sports into successful entrepreneurship and business leadership. And the idea is to teach and inspire athletes that there is life after sports. So excited today to have Tom Nolan. How you doing, Tom?
Great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So Tom he was a baseball player and a golfer at Fordham University, and then once he got out, he got into sales and got into various industries, into the publishing industry. Ultimately, today he is the CEO of Kendra Scott. And he's had some great stories along the way, and I'm sure Tom's going to share them with us. So I always like to start out, Tom, talk about playing sports growing up and how it shaped you leading up into college.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I'd be today if it wasn't for sports in my life currently, in my family's life, and certainly shaped the person I am today. I mean, I'm a hugely competitive. I look at everything as a game that I not just like to win, but feel like I have to win. And that was embedded in me at a very young age. I mean, I played through high school. I played every sport: football, baseball, basketball. I ironically didn't play golf in high school. But yeah, I mean, it was the center of my world. It was my escape from the place I grew up in, and felt like my outlet for work. And it was one of those things. And I feel like this today. I use a lot of sports analogies here at work, but it's the purest form of you get out of it what you put into it. And I think it's a great foray into life. You get out of life what you put into it. And for me, sports, I was never the most talented, but I felt like I could outwork just about anybody. And I still feel like that today. And the more I put into it, the more it gave me back and the better I got. And I really kind of unlocked this and saw this, and it's changed my life. And it really was rooted in sports.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel the same way. I was kind of like the underdog kind of guy too, with the different things, but a lot of determination, and it certainly can get you a long way. So, did you dream about it being a professional athlete? And if so, what sport?
Yeah, I mean, baseball was. I mean, I loved all sports. I mean, I played everything, like I mentioned, but baseball was kind of the one sport that I really zeroed in on, and I think I was probably the best at. I was a pitcher, an outfielder, and could throw the ball pretty hard when I was younger, and really felt like that was going to be my future. That was my dream. That was where I poured all of my resources and assets and time and effort into. And it didn't pan out, but all's well that ends well. I'm happy with how my life shaped up, but it was great. It taught me a lot about life. It taught me a lot about people. It gave me an opportunity to go to college, which, I was the first person in my family to graduate high school. So that might not have been an opportunity had it not been for sports. And, so I'm thankful for the game of baseball, for all sorts of sports, and the lessons it's taught me and continues to teach me today.
Yeah, that's great. I'm same way. I love baseball. I always joke on the podcast. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That was my dream. Talent wasn't there, unfortunately, so I do podcasts. So let's talk about, again, transition to sport is such a tough thing. So at Fordham, when you were there, or maybe even today, were there classes or workshops that kind of helped athletes ultimately in their transition to sports? And I don't mean just like the one day thing.
Yeah. I would say when I was in school, I graduated in 99. So it's 25th anniversary this year, which is making me feel old, but not really. I would say the one thing I would think about, like, I lived with a bunch of other athletes, like we all kind of congregated together. It felt like we all centered in around the same major. I shared a lot of classes, not just with baseball players, but also football and hoops players. But there wasn't a ton of resources at the time. I felt like I was just so grateful that, sports were paying for my education. I didn't really care about anything else, for being honest. And I loved being a part of the team and the fraternity of the baseball team, and there at school, which was enough for me. I would say today there's a lot more focus on it. Companies like Fanatics are investing a lot of resources to help either professional and collegiate athletes kind of as they enter the next chapter of their life. And we had advisors that helped out the athletes, and I would say that was kind of the extent of it. I have a son who's going to college next year to play sports, and it's amazing in 25 years how much things have changed. I mean, they really lean into their athletes. He's going to Seton Hall, and lean into the athletes in a pretty material way and help them from day one from a resource perspective. Because, the one thing I learned, which I was not expecting, um, was just the strain of time management. It was hard enough. I struggled with being a great student, and it was hard enough to be a great student to get through college that I wouldn't lose my scholarship for baseball. And then it's a pretty grueling process. It's a full year. I mean, the second you get there, you start. And it really goes through all year. So the time management thing I thought was something that kind of shocked me. And I guess I wish we had more resources, but navigated it fine. And I think today the world's changed a lot. And sports have become such a bigger part of the college experience. I think colleges are wisely investing more in the athletes monetarily, resource, time. So I think it's a lot different now than it was when I was in school.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of schools have different programs. I mean, I talked to one guy, he played football at University of Buffalo, and he said that he really wishes that there would have been like a 4 week workshop maybe, or at least, or a class that they had to take. And to your point, the time management, the athletes, especially some of these elite athletes, they just don't have it, but it's so important. And I think, we've talked about, as a company going in with other resource partners and trying to develop within an athletic department additional curriculum and workshops to help, but not only the current athletes, but a lot of times the alumni athletes tend to get forgotten. I mean, obviously, like you said, at Seton Hall, they're pouring into the athletes, but what about the men and women that, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they're still struggling? Did they really have that outlet? And we're trying to see what we can do to help bring that together.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah. So let's talk about networking, connecting, such an important thing, and talk about, your experience with that. And then also, I guess the importance of doing it while you're still playing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, networking has kind of been at the center of my career and my life. I mean, I didn't grow up with a lot of advantages, kind of the place that I grew up in, the education level that I was around, this sort of thing. So sports was my outlet. And it teaches you so many great lessons about, I was always around adults and I learned how to talk to adults, whether it was my athletic director in high school or coaches. And, you felt comfortable under pressure and being on the stage and that sort of thing. The networking part of it, I did a little bit with, I would say, alumni that went to Fordham as they came in, if we did alumni games for baseball or anything like that. But it really was golf was the area for me where I was able to utilize a skill that I had to benefit me professionally and really through networking. And I think just the game of golf lends itself to that in a way that's different than other sports. And that, Rob, you and I don't know each other that well, but we could go spend 5 hours together on a golf course and become fast friends. And I think if you
Yeah.
can unlock how to do that effectively and navigate that to gain access to people that maybe ordinarily you wouldn't have access to. That was a big deal, a really big deal for me. I used the game of golf as a pretty significant tool for me in my career. It gave me access to people that I probably ordinarily wouldn't have had access to internally in the organizations I was in, but also with customers that I was calling on and people that I admired that I wanted to spend time with. It was kind of an easy get, if you will, to gain access to somebody to spend 4 or 5 hours with them on a golf course. And then you really get to, you learn a lot about a person when you're doing that, the integrity that they have, a little bit about their character, you learn about their family, and, you just create this kind of indelible connection. So I think that was the best asset for me. And the way that I utilize networking probably most effectively. And I still do it today.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, same thing. I mean, being in sales for many years and you got on the golf course, I'm not good at it, but to your point, it's giving you that time and just getting to know people and build relationships, which is key with networking is building relationships. And, we talk about, I was interviewing a couple young college students here, freshmen and sophomore athletes, and talked about networking. I asked them, like, do you do it? And they said, we've never really learned that. And I mean, honestly, I think even like if you think back to high school, just, your friends and their parents and just coaches and stuff like that, it's just, we encourage people to do that. What I found is I was talking to one agent and he just said the best time to do it is while the athlete's still playing. He represents some professional athletes. And what happened, he said, is they don't, and then they get done. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. Hire me, give me this $100,000 sales job, whatever. And not so much just because they just haven't built those relationships. So it is so critical.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
do that.
I think for young people and specifically, it's hard. I mean, look at my kids. My oldest is going on 20, and my youngest is 7. But everybody in between, it's hard for a young person to have the confidence to be able to talk to an adult. It's intimidating, and I think sports lends itself to knocking down some of those barriers or giving people the confidence to be able to do that. Because I think life, whatever field you're in, whether you're a professional athlete, a college athlete, in sales and marketing, finance, you have to be able to have interpersonal relationships and a skill set to be able to navigate things and problem solve and understand and be empathetic to what other people are dealing with. And I think you got to do that. You can only really do it through reps. And I was a communications major in college, which I think kind of also lent itself to that. I had to do a lot of stand and deliver presentations. There was a lot of things in the community, and the sports teams would also go into the communities. And we were, I was not exceptionally talented or anything, but for people in the Bronx, I mean, we would do things as a baseball team, and the local kids love that stuff. So it was pretty neat.
No, that's great. So you kind of touched a little bit before with the networking and kind of we talked about alumni, but talk about alumni connection, and this is something obviously for Alumni Direct that's important. But um, were there efforts for the school kind of bringing in athletes back, and I don't mean just for like the golf tournament or the homecoming, but to come back and work with the current athletes or the alumni athletes?
No, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of white space there, Rob. I don't think the schools I've been involved with, I went to Fordham for undergrad, and then I went to UNC Chapel Hill for business school. And I try to give back as much as possible because I think it's important. I've been really lucky in my life to accomplish things that I have, and couldn't have done it without help of people and, having access to certain things. And I don't think by and large, schools that I've seen at least any of them do a great job of effectively bringing those worlds together to help utilize people that have gone through the process before to help ones that are just about to enter the working world, or retiring from professional sport. Like, what does that mean? I mean, it's scary, and I really don't think that enough of higher education is doing. I don't think higher education is doing enough to set up people for success that have given a lot to the universities or the programs specifically. And part of it is, it could be a time commitment from alumni that really want to commit, because to do
Right.
things effectively, you have to be all in. And I don't know if people are willing to do that. And I also don't know if the some of the higher education organizations are focused on making that a priority, because a lot of times they get what they want out of their kids while they're there, and afterwards it's kind of to each their own, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think what happens too. I mean, you're right. It's a two-way street too. I mean, obviously the athlete needs to want to come back, but I think sometimes it might be the schools, there's a change in the athletic department, new athletic director, maybe new coaches, but it's so important. I mean, I was on a call with fellow alumni from my school, and he was a Hall of Fame player from school, football player, played like 10 or 12 years in the NFL, and we're talking to folks in the athletic department, and he's like, tap me in. I'd love to help. I mean, but they don't reach out. So it's something I think that, people definitely need to concentrate and, make a stronger effort from the school's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Especially as sports become more relevant. I mean, you look at the success, I've mentioned Fanatics already, that they've had recently, just dominating the sports world. Like the entertainment criteria that people are looking for. I mean, sports is just zeroed in on it. And there's so many analogies that will make you a successful athlete, will make you a successful business person. And I think that those two worlds coming together is really, really important.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So here's a new wrinkle that I've kind of added into my with these fun questions that I'll do every once in a while. So, what advice would you give to freshman Tom?
Um, I talked to a lot of college students today. I'm actually addressing the University of Texas this evening. I don't know if there's going to be any freshmen in that class, but I'm a big believer in time being the most important currency that we all have, right? I mean, it's the only currency you can't make more of. You can make more money, you win and you lose in life, and sometimes you get knocked down, and you can build yourself back up financially. You can never get time back, and I think too many young people specifically waste time waste time on the wrong kind of people that aren't really encouraging them and helping them get better, and they waste time on the wrong kind of things. I look at like the impact that social media has had on our world, and I look at my kids. I have a sophomore in college, an incoming freshman next year into college, and it's like, there's a lot of pressures on these kids that we didn't have, to live a reality that's not even real, right? Just because they see other people on social media. So I think I would just say, be really smart about your time, who you spend it with, what you spend it on, because you can't get more of it. And the things that you do as a 18, 19, 20-year old, that discipline that you instill in yourself and the behaviors that you have are going to live with you the rest of your life. And you can set good behaviors and practices, or you can set bad ones. And I think too many people feel like I got a long life ahead of me and I'm going to do some stuff now, and it's not going to have a huge impact. I disagree. And I've had, personally, I've had some loss in my life. I lost my sister when she was 23 from a brain aneurysm, my only sibling. And it's like, I think I've been forced to realize that, things happen fast. Life is short. You got to make the most of it. And that currency of time is really, really important. And, just be smart about how you spend it and where you're putting units of energy.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And how about senior Tom? Any advice for him?
Yeah, I think I talk probably more to upperclassmen in college, and like everybody's so panicked and freaked out about what they're going to, whether an athlete or not an athlete. Like, what am I going to do next? Like, and the reality is, I think, it doesn't matter what you do. You just got to take action, right? And you're going to learn a lot in whatever you wind up going into. And I think so many people have like their mindset on, I got to land my dream job. I got to make a ton of money. All this pressure from my parents and my friends, and I see what everybody else is doing. And it's like, you've got, 5 to 10 years where it doesn't matter, so to speak. Like you can do almost anything as long as you're learning and you're working for good people that are investing their time and energy into you to help you get better and continue to be a teacher and a coach to you. Like that's what you want to find. Like I always wanted to find, I've been very fortunate that I've had great teachers and coaches, not just as an athlete, but I think every great CEO is a great teacher or coach, right? It's kind of how I look at my job. I feel like, I have the privilege of teaching and coaching a team of 3,000 amazing individuals, and making them better is really rewarding for me because it makes me better. So I think for seniors, it's like, give yourself a break. You're talented people, are going to continue to be talented in life. And if you're dedicated and focused on your goals and everything maps back to those things, you're going to be fine. But you may trip a little bit, and you're allowed to do that a lot as long as you learn from those times you fall down and pick yourself back up and go be successful. Like I got out of college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I never had an internship or anything just because of the way that I grew up, and it was scary, and I figured it out. I think if you have good work ethic and smart enough people sense and good problem solving ability, like people are going to be successful.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about NIL, name, image, and likeness. Kind of give me your thoughts. I mean, when you were playing, when I was running college, it didn't exist. Well, I guess it existed in a booster system, maybe. But give me your thoughts, both positive and negative.
I mean, look, uh, I wasn't anywhere near good enough at anything to get paid to do it in college or after college, for that matter. But I think the idea of paying athletes that are making universities have historically made universities and will continue to make universities a lot of money. And some of the bigger programs is great. I think that, name, image, and likeness should be rewarded in a really thoughtful way. So I think it's overall a good thing. I think without any sort of governance, it's a scary thing, right? Because what it's going to do is what you're seeing happening right now is like it's a very limited number of universities are going to continue to dominate because they've got, the largest donor network and alumni network to help fund those things. So I think NIL overall is a good idea. I think the combination of NIL and the transfer portal is scary to me.
Yeah.
I've talked to enough, when I'm done working, my dream is to be a teacher and a coach. Like that's what I want to do. Hopefully that's what I get that privilege to be able to do because it's the most rewarding thing for me. But I talk to coaches now in college and, ask them about recruiting, and it's like, they don't even, it's not even about recruiting anymore. You know, the relationships with the parents and the kids and like what you're going to do. And I think about like, for me, sending my son to college to play sports, like it was paramount that I had a relationship and knew JT Harper at Seton Hall and how he was going to take care of my son and foster him and coach him and teach him and guide him. Without that, you know, I think college sports changes in a really ugly way, you know, and the kids are not worried about, there's no team connection. There's less loyalty. They're going to go somewhere. And if, you know, they don't put the work in and do a good enough job, then they're just going to give up and go somewhere else. Like that doesn't feel right to me. So I think NIL overall is a pretty good thing. I think the combination of NIL with the transfer portal is a dangerous thing for college sports. And I actually honestly think it takes away any leverage that great coaches had. You've heard it very consistently and loudly from folks like Nick Saban, you know, what he thinks of it. I think we kind of share a similar point of view there. There's got to be some oversight governance on it so that, you know, there's got to be accountability somewhere, you know, and the kids, if you don't play well, it's a good lesson for life, right? Like
Yeah.
if I don't do my job effectively here at Kendra Scott, I'm not scoring enough points. That's on me. Right.
Right.
I shouldn't get to leave to go somewhere else and just abandon the team here. Right. That's kind of what it feels like to me. So I've got some real challenges with it overall.
Yeah, and I see that, and I see the two sides. I mean, education is definitely an issue too, because I mean, there's a lot of these kids that don't know. I mean, I guess it's good from a perspective, like even an entrepreneurial spirit, where hey, you've got these athletes now they've got to set up an LLC, they got to pay taxes, so they're learning
Yeah.
things, and even from and I guess maybe from your perspective too, being a big brand, like a lot of these brands, just I think if the kids do it right, and not even getting away from the portals and all that part, but just if the kids do it right with some type of branding where it's a product branding,
I mean,
like in a fun way.
the reality is, what is it? 2% of collegiate athletes become professional athletes,
Yeah,
right? So it's
yeah,
98% of people that are, you know, getting NIL dollars in the transfer portal aren't going to be professional athletes,
right.
right? And I think, you know, it's great to get to build up some wealth, and I think NIL should go along with, you know, financial advisors. Like, how do
Absolutely.
you take custody of that asset properly and invest it so that, you know, if you're the 98% that's not going professional, you have a nice nest egg to help you get started and start a family and buy a home or buy your first car or whatever it is. And I'm not talking about the elite
Right.
2% that are making millions and playing, you know, in the Big Ten and the SEC for football or hoops. But, you know, I think NIL overall for the broader group of folks is a good thing. But I do think there has to be some oversight on it to have it be
Yeah.
most effective.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that for sure. So let's talk about the transition out of sports. So for you, I guess it's a little bit different golf because you're still playing golf, but you've played your whole life baseball and all these other sports, golf, and now you're done with college and getting out into, we'll say the real world. I mean, it's not necessarily put that way, but still, how was your transition? And maybe if you can give some advice to fellow athletes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the transition out of college in general is really scary because you're on your own, right? I remember it's like
Right.
the first time when my daughter was born, you get home and you're like, holy cow, I have this human that I'm now responsible for. It felt very similar when I got, you know, you're off the payroll, you know, you're not, everything's not taken care of anymore, right? Like you got to find a place to live, you got to find a way to eat, you have to pay for these things. You can't live with your parents forever, those sort of things. So like, I don't know if it matters as much, you know, if you're an athlete, maybe it's even a greater challenge for athletes because to a large degree, athletes are coddled a little bit more in college, and when you get out, it's like the world doesn't coddle you. You got to like sink or
Right.
swim. Um, so for me, all the lessons that I learned as an athlete, you know, whether it was in college or before college, of like you get out of things what you put into it. If I work my tail off, I'm going to be more successful at, you know, if I go out and I shoot, you know, I'm not making a lot of free throws and I go out and I practice for 3 or 4 hours making free throws, I'm going to get better at it. It's not going to be a challenge anymore. So I think those, that muscle of exercise of like what you get out of life depends on what you put into it served me great in business, continues to serve me really well in business. I mean, we have here at Kendra Scott, we have company themes every year, and you know, we're 93% female right now. Not all of our constituents really understand sports or care about sports the same way that I do, but we we've really leaned into sporting themes. Like last year, our company theme was we wanted it to be a game changing year, and it was. We grew revenue by 20%. We grew free cash flow and EBITDA by north of 40%. We had a game changing year. This year, the mentality and the mindset for the company theme is, a championship mindset. And to me, what that means is like, you think about great champions, Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, whoever you want to fill in the blank there with. As soon as they win, the next day they start working, and it's
Yeah.
like they've won nothing, right? So like that mentality of like output and work ethic and care and winning, and like, there's no, you don't get trophies for second place. Like it served me really well in my life. It continues to serve me really well. You know, it gives you an accountability of ownership of what you're doing. You're not relying, and the team mentality is really important. Like I remember the greatest lessons I ever learned playing sports were not, and this serves me today, like in my office today. I, it, the accountability of playing a team sport is so important, and it's not like it never bothered me when my coach would yell at me about something, or I blew coverage on a defense, or I walked a run in or whatever. Like you expect that, but when your teammates get on you about letting the team down, like that was devastating to me. Like the idea that I would be a contributing factor in having somebody else not be successful really lent itself into me being the servant leader that I am today. Like I feel like I serve our company, I serve our customer. I don't ever feel like people work for me here. And like, if I hadn't played sports my whole life, I don't think I'd have that same mentality, because, I knew what it felt like, and I took a lot of the lessons learned and just put them into my day-to-day job. And I started in a sales career. And I feel like for athletes, sales is a great natural thing because it's pure output, right? Like the more calls you make, the more meetings you go on. The more meetings you go on, the more business you book. The more business you book, the greater you do. It's a very 1+1=2 kind of thing. So I was fortunate. I think I landed in a sales position. I was fortunate that I worked in a place that rewarded hard work. We had, what I would call a scoreboard up about call volume and that sort of thing. Like all these things kind of resonated with me versus being a square peg in a round hole if I went into finance, or was just sitting behind a desk and not interacting with people. And I didn't have a mark that I had to hit. Like I'm a goal, or I think when you're an athlete, you're a goal oriented person. Like I want to know what the goal is. I want to exceed that goal and then rub it in everybody's face. Like, I think like that mentality, great leaders have it. I think great athletes obviously have it. You have to have it. They're constantly playing games with yourself of, you know, that winning mindset. I think if it's ingrained in you at a young age, it lives with you forever.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And one thing I think that a lot of athletes don't realize, I mean, they identify themselves as, they're done. And like, hey, I'm the baseball player. I'm Tom the baseball player, Tom the golfer, Rob the runner, Bill the football player, whatever. And they have so many years ahead of them still. And there's such this skill set and the DNA of athletes is so important. So talk as yourself as a business leader, when you're looking to hire, you know, do you look to hire, athletes and, again, just talk about that and the skill set that they bring?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't say that I have a prejudice towards athletes or not. You can have an athletic mindset, not be an athlete. Like to be
Sure.
clear, like
Absolutely.
if you
Yeah.
enjoy winning and want to win and want to do it by a lot, I feel like that resonates with me. So, but I love hiring athletes. I love people that have an athletic mindset because they understand how to overcome challenges. And I feel like the best people I've hired, the best teams I've been a part of, are not the ones that just are naturally talented and just win and know, and like things are given to them. It's the teams, it's the people that have gone through really hard things, and you galvanize. And when you can overcome a challenging thing, whether it's a challenging upbringing or a challenging relationship or a challenging loss, like that's how you learn. And the people that get better and stronger from that, like the resiliency and relentlessness that those people have wired in their DNA, like I'm all over it. I want to hire all of those people. It's the ones that where things come a little bit too easy and they haven't had any struggle, and haven't lost a bunch of games, and don't know, that you have to hate losing as much as you love winning. I feel like, to make you win more. So I think that, and there's a galvanization that happens. Like our team here, I recognize about myself, like I'm better when things are hard. I just focus more, it becomes more of a game to me. Like it really kind of gets my athletic kind of competitive juices going. But what we went through here, Kendra Scott, through COVID was, I mean, the loss of life and the challenging things that happened in COVID were terrible. But I love that period of time because everybody got brought together. We had a common goal, a common mission. We came out of it and we succeeded. And like that feeling of doing that as a team is pays dividends today. Now, 4 years later here at our organization. And so when we're looking to hire people, and my head of HR, Danielle, is amazing, and she thinks about it the same way, like hire people that want to win, that need to win, that know how to win. And when they lose, hate it enough to figure out how to not have it happen again. And I think athletes are predisposed that way, but that doesn't exist exclusively in people that played sports. But obviously, it's a lot more prevalent amongst that constituency.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what, that's an awesome atmosphere, and you're right, because even I think back to my sales career and being a runner, just being distance running can be kind of tough, and just a lot of my skill set was built on that, and just you said the perseverance and just the drive and everything else, and now just
It's like
running
it's like I love horse racing. I don't like go to the track and gamble necessarily, but like I appreciate great racehorses because they just want to win. Like you read
Yeah,
books about Secretariat or any great racehorse, like you didn't even have to do anything. They couldn't stand having someone else beat them. And I feel like I'm wired that way. I have a picture I'm looking at actually of Secretariat winning the Belmont for the Triple Crown, and he won by 32 and a half lengths. And it's like you either have that mentality and you want to win. You don't just want to like inch out. You want to win by 32 lengths and embarrass the rest of the field. Like that's how we're wired here. That's how I'm wired. That's how Kendra, my boss, is wired. And when you build a team of people like that in a business environment, it's remarkable what can be accomplished, and it makes your life easier because I'm a macro manager, not a micromanager to begin with. I don't like being micromanaged, and when you have a great group of people that think that way, you just let them run, right? You never have to motivate. You never have to use you, know, you never have to use anything other than like, let's win this together. We know what we're going to do. And like when you hire right, to your question, that just gets really easy.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about what you're doing today. So we talked a little offline. I had my head spinning. So not only are you the CEO of Kendra Scott, but doing some other things. So talk about that. Talk about Kendra Scott and some of the great things you're doing there.
Yeah. So my plate's really full. I've got a great wife at home and four amazing kids. So, number one, I'm a dad and a husband, and that's the thing that matters most in my life. And it's the most rewarding thing in my life. But on top of my job here at Kendra Scott, I've been on our board for almost 10 years now. And, I've been working at the company for 7. I serve on the board of a company in New York called Tommy John. It's an underwear company. I serve on the board of a cookware company here in Austin called Maiden. Um, and a really fun kind of passion project of mine that I love with some friends is we own a little 9-hole golf course, which is a top 50 golf course in the country called Sweetens Cove. And we launched a bourbon out of it 4 years ago. And my business partners in that are Rob Collins, who built the golf course, a guy named Skip Bronson, Peyton Manning, and Andy Roddick, and Drew Holcomb is a country music singer. We've got a great CEO in that business named Chris Parsons, is doing a heck of a job. And it's been a ton of fun getting to do that on the side with some friends. But I've got a really busy life, and I'm so proud of the accomplishments we've had here at Kendra Scott. When I started this business, we had 11. We had 11 stores at the time. Today we have 138 stores. We've grown the business into north of $500 million in revenue, and couldn't be more proud of the team and how we do it. And we've given back more than $65 million in the last 10 years to philanthropy. We did 21,000 events to help people last year. It's really an incredible organization. And I'm so fortunate to work with such great people and have a business partner and our chairwoman, my boss, and Kendra, who's become a surrogate sister to me. I mentioned I lost my sister a number of years ago, and I feel like we have just a big family here, and it's been a lot of fun. Super proud of what we've done.
That's great. I mean, and that's the kind of companies that people want to work for. I mean, it's all you just talking to you, it's all about family, and whether it's your immediate family or your work family, it's really. And so, how can people find you?
I've got a pretty significant presence on LinkedIn, so that's an easy way to reach out to me. I always give out my email address. When I started here, we were 99% female. So if you're a guy, you just generally got your first name, even though I have like the most boring name of Tom. But my email is tom@kendrascott.com. Anybody can reach out to me. I mentioned earlier, I love teaching and coaching. I've been very fortunate in my life to have had great teachers and coaches and mentors and people that cared enough about me to show an interest and lean in and give me advice and help when I needed it. And I was never afraid to ask for it. And I encourage people to reach out if I can help in any capacity with time or resources. I'm happy to do it. You can, follow me on Instagram or Twitter and all the other social media things too.
Oh, great. And we'll put those in the show notes. This has been great, Tom. We really appreciate it. You can find us at alumnidirect.com. If you go to our YouTube channel, that's where you can find the show Athletes and Entrepreneurs Alumni Journey. We're also across all the different podcast networks and Instagram, Twitter, or X, I should say. But this is a really important topic, and we want to get this out and just in front of as many people as we can. Because I think there's definitely, I've had great guests like yourself, Tom, and other athletes, and there's a lot of information and nuggets that they share that I think can really make an impact on helping athletes as they do transition out of sports.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think overall athletes have an intangible ability and a quality about them that others don't oftentimes. And I feel like leaning into that and the leverage that you can have through that and the lessons you've learned, through a lifetime of that can serve you so well in the business community and will just pay a dividend as long as you focus on doing it the right way and winning as a team and working hard and caring. Like just all those qualities are so powerful and thoughtful. And I think if you can do that, one of the things we've really unlocked here at Kendra Scott, I think oftentimes, and I've seen this, and I think it's important just real quick to mention, Rob, is that oftentimes the mentality of winning at all costs and doing whatever it takes and the locker room mentality or whatever you want to call it, like doesn't always equate to the best working environment. And other times you have working environments that are, really focused on the softer side of things and how people feel. And like, that's not necessarily the best environment either, especially for somebody who's hard charging. What we've been able to do here, and I'm very proud of our team for this, is and those things usually juxtapose each other. Like we have an environment and, 3,000 people here that are tenacious, need to win, hungry, hard charging, successful people, but we're kind and generous and thoughtful and loving and philanthropic. And like, I've never seen it work this way before anywhere. And I've worked at some great companies and we really do it. You mentioned earlier in a very familial way. We hold each other very accountable. We recognize the customer's our boss, but we genuinely care and love each other the way that I do my family. And a lot of companies talk about that. I think we execute it really well. And we haven't lost an ounce of killer instinct of wanting to win,
Right.
of needing to win, of having to win. Like we do both of those things really well. We just do it in a very thoughtful way. And I think really important lesson for a lot of athletes, I would say, is that engine inside of you can be used the right way. It doesn't have to be one way. And I've learned that lesson here. It was always one way for me at other places, but in the last decade that I've been here, it's really, I've my eyes have been opened, and it's been a big unlock to understand you can keep all the great things about that, and not have it be a challenging working environment. So I think that's probably the thing I'm as an athlete I'm most proud of, and I think important for other people to understand. Like, you don't have to be smashing helmets
Right.
with each other to be successful. You can do it in you can have that fire, but you can do it in a really thoughtful way.
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess almost like a hybrid model, so to speak, right? Yeah, it's kind of getting the best of both worlds, which is awesome. So, well, thanks again, Tom, and look forward to our next show.
All right, cool. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me.
You're welcome.